Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.L. Combs Asian Art, located in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is May 5th, 2019, and this is our weekly video, a look back at last week's eBay auction results, see how things are going on over at CATAWIKI. And we focus, of course, on the things that we've put on the eBay newsletter page, the weekly newsletter page, which is here. These are, as you know, things that we spot through different search techniques and find during the course of a week. We save them and put them on here to share with everybody. And it was a pretty good week. It was a lot of good things and some very strong prices, and we're going to get into them a bit. One of them is, of course, of this chest, which did very well, and some other things. So let's get started. We'll dive right into it. Let's see here. We'll go here first. First was this. It was a very interesting Celadon, sort of almost like Qingbai, but it wasn't. It was a late Ming piece, but beautifully done. Nice pear-shaped vase, faceted, slightly faceted body, but a good-looking thing. The only thing going on with it was it had once been drilled as a table lamp, and you've all seen this before. This was another example, but a good example. This was a good piece of porcelain, nice hand-cut foot. You can see the facets, how the foot was hand-trimmed. Nice deep iron oxide line, very typical of late Ming pieces. Good blue, nice bluish ground on the bottom, that good color. And it did very well. It brought $469, but it wasn't a crazy price at all for a nice early piece. I think the form and type might have thrown a few people off. This fellow called it 17th century Qingbai. It's not really Qingbai. It's actually a Celadon, but it's kissing cousin, at any rate. And it was probably done around 1580 to 1620, somewhere in there. But a good example. Nice piece of porcelain. I hope whoever got it loves it. It's the kind of thing I like. And I didn't buy it, so you know. All right, and then on to this, the pair of Foo Lions. This was a very colorful pair of Foo Lions. Nice turquoise aubergine with yellow. Beautifully done. The seller had these listed as, I think, late 18th century or something. They were 19th century, but good quality. Here's a picture of the bottom. When you see the glazes, the different colored glazes pooling over like that, in the color of that paste, typically they're early 19th or mid-19th century pieces, but well done. Good quality all the way around. And it brought the right price. It brought $692, which is right about in the range that they would be worth as a 19th century piece. He had them as 18th. I don't think it was intentional. I think he was just off a little bit. All right. But they were good looking. Nice color. And then on to this, that rather unusual, these sort of lobed ingot-formed dishes with the fitted stands on them for holding the cup. Here's the hole. The guy should have probably washed it before he took the pictures. I don't know why people don't do that. You should wash your stuff before you take a picture so it looks really nice. You see the color. All right, here's a picture of the detail with the Foo Lion. Good example. Very, very classic mid-19th century piece. Nice green bats going around the outside. Typical footroom of 19th century wares. But the price was very strong. $1,407. All right, and the reason is that this form is fairly unusual. You don't see them. They were originally made in sets of, you can see them occasionally. You'll see them in a set of 6 or 8, something like that. But most of the sets are long broken up. The form is more typically done in blue and white, but this was a good Famille Rose example, and as a result, it brought nearly $1,500, and that's why. All right, and then on to this was this nifty little Kangxi pear-shaped bottle. All right, they made quite a few of these during the period. Some of them have artisma leaves on them. They have other decorations. This one had people on it, a young man presenting a tray of precious objects, it looks like. There's a rue scepter coming out of it. All right, it had a hairline in it, and it had been fitted with metallic mounts, which is very common, as you all know, over in Europe during the 18th and 19th century, especially. They added silver or gilt bronze mounts, copper even, onto porcelains, all right, because they were going to use them for different things, for tea caddies and ewers and that kind of thing. Here's the bottom of it. Had a little, looks like a firing chip out of the bottom here, and so forth. But you have that nice ivory paste that you see on Kangxi wares. Nice looking, very typical foot. Not a lot of impurities in the paste, of course, with Kangxi pieces. And the foot rims tended to be very well smoothed out on these. And it was a nice example. And it brought $265. I think the hairline held it back a bit. Probably would have brought around $500 or $550 without the hairline. But still a nice example and somewhat unusual pattern for these. Most often they're floral. All right, and then on to this. This was that wonderfully carved chest. Some of you already know how it did, but we'll get to it in a second. As I mentioned last week, these are extremely well-known, highly collected carvings when they're done in this manner. We had done some looking. We found one that brought in the low $100,000 range. Yesterday, or last week rather, when we first had this on the other video, it was up to around 10,000 or so. And I suggested, I said anything under 30,000, 20, 30,000 would be a heck of a buy. And it didn't sell for that. It sold for $87,000. Here's the final thing. And I did get a hold of the guy. We communicated a little bit. I was cheering him on. And he had some hesitancy about leaving it on, actually. And I said, no, leave it on. See how it does. I think you'll do fine. And it did just fine. It brought sort of in the upper end of its price range. And it's been picked up and taken care of. And that's a done deal. So good for him. All right. Now on to this. One thing I wanted to say, on eBay, sellers will tell you that have done this. We've done it. We've had things sell for, upwards of the same money here, $100,000. Typically, when you get over $30,000 or $40,000, the non-payment rate goes way down because you end up with just the really serious buyers. So if you have something and it gets up to that price range, don't worry too much about it not getting paid for, because our experience and other sellers I've talked to, they're always delighted when it gets above 30 grand, because at that point you're dealing just with serious bidders, more typically, and people that are anxious to buy the item. All right, now on to the silk. Nice piece of early silk with the dragon and phoenix. The brocade edging on it was added later, but very good quality work, very fine needlework over here, and then these nice loops, the scales on the dragon done in gold thread. Beautifully done. Here he's, for some reason, measuring everything. This is the brocade that was added. You often see these put onto silks when they were exported in the early part of the 20th century. This brocade pattern was very commonly used to outline and border and frame silk. Sometimes these were put in books. All right, or big albums. This particular one did just fine. It brought $1,425. That was the seller Bric-a-Brac out in San Diego on the West Coast here in the United States. Nice thing. And so I wanted to mention this. We had these on when they first came up. We had them on the eBay Today page. Really great pair of Republic vases. These are two of the best Republic vases I've seen in a long time. And I was very interested to see how they do. I think they're probably by Wang Dafan or one of those great masters. Beautiful quality work. Has the applied bats on the shoulders like you see with these Republic pieces. Nicely done face. High quality piece all the way around. Just great quality. And it disappeared. And I got a hold of the seller, and he said it was put up by mistake. Maybe it was, and they didn't mean to, but I got a feeling maybe he got some really huge offers for these and decided to send them down the road. He said they're going to be in Hong Kong, and they'll do very well for him there. These are absolutely great, and don't be surprised to see them sell for in the six figures. All right, just a great pair of vases. And I'm sorry they didn't finish on eBay, because I think they probably would have done just about as well as they would in Hong Kong. All right, and then on to the big bottle vase. This is a good, big, deep blue bottle vase. Wonderful form, ever popular form. It's hard to date. You can often date these based on their shapes, by the proportions of the body and the neck. Unfortunately, the guy that took these pictures shot everything up too close and at an angle. So it's hard to tell exactly what the shape of that bottle is. Just so you know, when you shoot things like this vases, the cameras have a natural distortion in the lens. So when you shoot them, you don't want to get too close. If you have to, step back, use a zoom to get in closer. But don't shoot the camera up this close, because it does distort the body. And don't shoot up at a piece. Always bring the camera up to eye level with the horizon of the top of the vase, and shoot the picture there. And that way the viewer can tell exactly what the shape of the vase is, okay? And here's a picture of the foot. You can see there was some glazed bubble that popped over here, but there is also this very nice iron oxide line, nice tight white paste. Beautifully done. Here's another shot of that foot rim, and you can see the glaze. Not a lot of orange peel in it. It's quite smooth. And on the bottom is this very provincial chin-lung mark, which you often see on late chin-lung pieces, and also on some cha-ching pieces. But the shape of this foot, the way it's kicked in, and that nice hard white paste, I suspect it probably was a late 18th century example. Possibly early 19th, but a really good-looking piece of porcelain. And everybody out there liked it. It brought $2,255, and I think that was a bit under the money. I think it was an okay price, but I think there's room in that vase still. It was good size. It was always check the sizes. This was 36 centimeters. It was a foot tall, and I think there's a little bit of money left in that. All right, good looking vase. And then on to this, the silver set from CJ & Co. It's a Shanghai company. They were in business from the 1880s to the 1920s. We've had a few things on here. Nice looking silver set, and it brought $2,190. Good quality silver though, beautiful quality. All right, if you're looking for something to collect and you like silver, boy, Chinese silver is a fascinating area, and there's slowly a few books are coming out on it. Papers are being written, and I think it's going to become a very popular collecting category. And silver with enamels, especially when they have the enamels. All right, and then on to the brush pot. This was a good mid-19th century Famille Rose brush pot with that nice deep dark blue enamel ground with bats and flowers running around it. And then you had each panel with a slightly different scene. Okay, good gilding, nice, a lot of gilding left on here. All right, and the other thing I wanted to mention about this was that you can see there's a bit of orange peel on this, which is very typical of these mid-19th century pieces. On some of the copies that are coming out lately, even on Kangxi pieces, they're starting to include orange peel. All right, so be very careful on orange peel being used, because people would say, oh, it's got orange peel, so it's got to be antique. No, they can put orange peel on anything. The problem with the modern orange peel right now is that the pattern of the peel is way too consistent and way too fine. It's very, very fine, little tiny bumps, and it seems almost strange to the touch. Orange peel has always been very irregular. It doesn't have a pattern to it. It varies as you move around a piece how much there is. So you want to check that and be very leery if you have a piece that you're not sure about and it has orange peel on it. You might say, well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Okay, just as a thought. It did have a chin lung mark, but a very nice brush pot. And there you can see the peel. That's the way it should look. And you don't see it on Kangxi, Yangchen, and early chin lung pieces ever. Okay, hardly ever. All right, it brought $2,816, which is a good price, but boy, it was a pretty pot and unusual form. All right, and then on to this big piece of Kutani, an immortal vase, had these beautiful aqua blue Foo masks, Foo Lion or lion head handles on the sides. Nice shape, beautifully potted, just a really good piece and very fine quality decoration. There's that nice, love that Foo Lion. All right, and this was sort of atypical for Kutani because of all the detail in the human figures or the immortals, and it did just fine. It brought $1,134, not a surprise in that. And lately we're seeing that these sort of very high quality Japanese pieces are starting to get more attention. I'm not sure where the buyers all are, but the prices seem to be getting sort of buoyed up. There was some good Satsuma a few weeks ago that did very, very well. There's a piece of Kutani on the cover of a Sotheby's catalog over in the UK. It's got a 6-figure estimate. There's a couple of very fine Kutani pieces being sold in May. And I haven't seen a piece of Kutani, I don't think, on the cover of a Sotheby's catalog in a long time. So that's very optimistic. All right, now let's move over here. This was the Wan Li plate. It was about a foot in diameter. Nice one. Good quality all the way around. And it seemed pretty free of repairs or any damage, and it did fine. It brought $651, but it was technically a charger. Pieces that are under that size, if you get around 9 inches or so, the price on these comes down considerably by $200 or $300 just for being a couple inches smaller. All right, and then on to these Nyonya Straights vases. These were not big vases. In the picture, it's hard to tell. These were under 10 inches. I think they were 8 or 9 inch vases, but beautifully colored. And these nice yellow Foo Lions on them, very, very festively colored. I think these are just becoming more and more popular. And a lot of people love these. They brought $3,650. Which is in range of what these bring lately. And pairs of vases are pretty unusual. You don't see them all that often. So that was a good result, I think. Good result. All right, and then on to this. I included this in the newsletter for a reason. This is at first glance, this looks like a very old piece, 18th century piece of celadon. Color is good, nice deep green, good crackle in it, all that good stuff going on. Beautifully done. And it has this blackened foot rim that you often see on early pieces, like that, okay, with iron oxide line and so forth. However, it has this mark on it. This is a 4-character underglazed blue Ming mark, and you typically don't see that mark on monochromes predating the 19th century. Not in my experience, anyway. So generally, when I see that mark, I always think it's a 19th century piece, just very well done. Had it not had that mark, it would have absolutely been listed as and bought as an 18th century piece, I think, by most collectors. So it's just a little heads up. They still did really good examples in the 19th century, and this was one of them. And it had a break in it on one of the edges, right there. Had a chunk out of it, and maybe there was something else. But at any rate, in the end, it did fine. It brought $281, a good quality piece of porcelain. But always remember that mark. Okay, you see that 4-character mark. Don't be certain that it's that old, even if it's high quality. And then on to the Cloisonne elephant that we heard about and put on here last week. This was a nice thing. And it comes apart, had all its tools, good color, and did some looking on the internet about these. A few of them, they were known to have been made in the 19th century. They often have chin-lung marks on the bottom. All right, like that. They all have that same mark, but they were made pretty certainly in the 19th century. And here's a picture of the overall bottom and so forth, the tools and whatnot. It's got good age. And they all bring in the 9 to, one brought 20,000 about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when the market was a little hotter. Lately, this seems to be, I did some looking after we put it up, seems to be the range, 8 to 12, 8 to 15,000 for these. It brought $12,100, right in the center of of what other ones have brought. So it's pretty obvious. People check online, and they go to Christie's, Sotheby's, Bonham, see what they brought over there, and then go accordingly. So there it is. Nice looking piece. And the same seller had this up. This is a fairly new seller in Malaysia. They haven't sold a lot of things. But boy, when they do, a while ago, they had some great Nyonya Straights porcelains about 5 months, 6 months ago, including a spoon that brought around $850. But there's this was a nice Kangxi deer plate being encircled by ascending cranes, beautiful quality, and it was in very nice condition. All right, and it brought $1,825. This was around a 10-inch plate, but nice example, beautiful example. And then the same guy had this up, the Kangxi horse's plate, and I loved this. I thought this was great. I like the way the willow trees up here come down and the way the horses are all posed in different ways, frolicking. They're often depicted rolling on the ground and running in all these different patterns. It's sort of a popular thing. Here's the back of it. It's got the incense burner mark on the back. Very, very typical of the higher end of the Kangxi pieces. And it did well. It brought $2,025. That was a nice thing. It was a genuinely nice thing. And now we're going to take a look at some things that are coming up in closing. So stick around. There's actually some interesting things. One of the things I wanted to mention was that on the bottom of the newsletter page, we have the CATAWIKI page. And then there's linked off the newsletter page. There's also a separate page for CATAWIKI things. You need to sort of check them both because sometimes they have different things. And the CATAWIKI side here has been getting better and better 18th century stuff. They've had a lot of Kangxi pieces. All right, but we're going to start out with something that's on eBay right now that I saw before it went up. The lady that owns this, that's selling it on eBay, sent me the pictures because she wasn't sure about how old it was or what it was, and she mentioned that it had a Watman Company watermark on the paper, and but it's a Chinese painting. And the reason is that the English exported paper that was watermarked, especially Watman. They were one of the bigger ones, to China for artists to work on for export paintings. They wanted them done on nice English paper so that they would present well, because the Chinese paper at that time, that wasn't that plentiful, and the English paper was superior to paint on. And they did these in sets. This one is the tea cleaning, tea preparation. And they did these occupational sets for export, sometimes in albums. There'd be 8 or 10 of them. But this is very classical, circa 1800 gouache, beautifully done. Nice variations in the faces, what they're doing here. The guys pouring, they've got the straw carriers, so they're pouring the tea out, letting it dry. And the ladies in the back here are cleaning the tea leaves off the stems. You see the stems on the table. Really nice watercolor. And here it is, sorting tea. Somebody penciled that in a long time ago. But this is a really nice watercolor. There's the Watman watermark. It's on the back. Good job at shooting that. At any rate, this is a nice thing. And if it brings under $1,000, it's an absolute bargain. All right, but this is a good watercolor. It's up to 127. It closes on Sunday. If you like nice Chinese paintings, and this is a good size painting. These aren't little tiny paintings. These are pretty big. You want to check that out. It'll be in the newsletter. I like that a lot. And obviously I like that. That's why I talk about it. But anyway, sorry. And then there's this, the Kangxi dish, or the lady in the approach, hunting the rabbit. You see the arrow going into the rabbit. It's kind of morbid, but they did do these hunting plates, and the women were often depicted as shooting rabbits, and the men would be shooting down deer. All right. And it's like in India, they had the when they depicted royal entourages hunting, the women hunting would be shooting antelope or elk or something, some hoofed animal, and the men would always be hunting tigers. It's just sort of a strange cultural thing, I guess. All right. And there's this, the Kangxi incense burner with the precious objects on it. They've had a few of these. This is a nice one. The CATAWIKI's in the Netherlands, so you're going to see more of these types of things over there than you are typically coming onto the market here in the U.S. It's a nice example. It's got about a week to go. It'll be on the newsletter page and on the CATAWIKI page. And then there's this, another Kangxi dish with these radiating, alternating panels of lattices with flowers, and then just flowers and so forth. Very, very nice. And there's quite a bit of it on. There's a whole half a page this week. If you don't have a CATAWIKI page yet, account yet, go over and get one, because I think in time you're going to be seeing more and more good things on there, and you're going to wish you had an account so you could buy there. It's just as easy as buying on eBay. They're not available in all countries yet. I think Australia is still off the list, and maybe Canada for some reason. I don't know why. But I'll ask them. I'll say, what the heck's going on? All right, then you have this. This is on eBay. This is an absolutely charming watercolor, circa 1890 to 1920, somewhere in there, but wonderfully done. And I love the facial expression of the woman. She's daydreaming over an incense burner, leaning on this really nice early 19th century table with a marble top. Very good quality. Could even be a late 18th century table. There's a lotus form celadon bowl with fruit in it. And there's a hairpin here with kingfisher feathers coming out. Just a nifty painting. Really, I like this thing a lot. Beautifully done, good decoration, and in nice condition overall. And it's up to $40. Should bring $300 or $400, but it's a nice picture. I like that. And then over to this is the Tibetan Bronze. Now he has this listed as 18th or 19th century, and it could also be older. You have to spend some time looking at it and check it out. All right, here's a picture of the base here. This kind of finish on here, typically with this deep stamping on the bottom. Typically, they're older than 19th and 18th century, so we'll see. But it's getting an awful lot of interest, and I think the people out there have decided it's probably, well, it has a nice piece of turquoise inlay into it, more typical of the old pieces. And it's up to $4,236. So I got a feeling people think it's more likely late Ming, and I think in the end it's very attractive. I think in the end it'll probably double that estimate at least. All right, we'll see next week. We'll see if I'm wrong. And on to this. This is something Scrap Dixon has up. If you like brush pots, this is a nice brush pot. It's a nice old one. It's 19th century, but it looks very legitimate to me. I love the elephant on it with the sleepy eye. You don't notice them unless you really look at it. And all the lohans scattered all over it. The carving is nice, very folky. This guy, I love this guy here at the bottom. He's sort of leaning, using the Foo Lion as an elbow rest, and very casual. And here's a picture of the foot on it, the bottom. It's up to $152, closes on Sunday. It's a nice brush pot. If you like woodwares, you want to chase this down. If it should bring, $700 to $1,100. We'll see how it does. That's a nice pot. All right, and then on to this, the soapstone carving of the recumbent woman. Very nice carving, 19th century carving, but superb quality. The seller did mention the head has been off it, which is so common with these things, because you look at soapstone sometimes with carving like this, with these necks, and the head practically falls off just by looking at the thing. They're very, very fragile. But this is really well carved. The carving on this is just great. The hair detail, the facial expression, the robes, and the stand that she's sitting on and so forth fits beautifully. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. And you notice the bottom of these when they're done better. On some soapstone stands, you see they chip carve the heck out of the bottom. All right, on this one they didn't. That's usually a better bit of soapstone, in my opinion. And nice face on her. Beautiful, beautiful face. And it's up to $69, and it should do a good bit better than that. It was fairly good size, as I recall. All right, and that's about it for the week. I hope you have a good weekend coming up, and if you have a comment to make, leave it here below. And we'd love to see them on tomorrow morning when I have my coffee. I look at the comments, and Sunday too when I have my coffee in the morning. And give us a thumbs up. We can always use those. Come over to Bidamount.com and sign up for the newsletter. And thank you to those of you that are using the inquiry services. We now have the Second Opinion and the Preview Assistant and the Idea Assistant. Seeing some really interesting things, and it's good to hear from folks. And thank you so much for using it. Okay. See you all next week, and have a wonderful weekend. All right. Bye-bye.